I think it's so much easier to support one another just because of social media.
I think that there's also another very important aspect to getting support and giving support.
Social media is the biggest avenue for me to be supportive.
There was a time in my career when I was a commercial editor.
I like that.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be in your particular situation. Welcome to the Emerging Artist Podcast. This is where you come to learn how to get your art practice up and running and profitable, and how to manage your mind as an emerging artist. I'm Scott Markowitz. I'm the president of Reinvention Studio Lab, and I'm joined here by Shiree Ingram with Shiree Nichole Designer Finishes LLC.
Yes.
And today we're going to touch on some things that all of us need as artists, and that's where to get help, where to get support. And as artists, how do we support each other, Shiree?
I think one of the things in the last several years, for me personally, I think it's so much easier to support one another just because of social media. I know I wasn't a huge fan of social media when it all first came out, and I refused to get on Facebook, and then I finally did, and I said I'd never be on Instagram, and now I am, and I said the same thing with TikTok, and so slowly being dragged along to all these social media platforms. But I think it was so nice about it is that you have a global network of people, and there's just so many ways that we can support each other. And so what I love is, like, a lot of the artists that I do know on social media, we communicate sometimes just in direct messaging and make just nice little brief comments about each other's work. And it's amazing how that makes you also feel for the day, encourages you, pumps you up, makes you excited. And I think those things are important. Something I like to do specifically on social media is I love to do like a art of the day hashtag and ask another artist if I can post their mural work or a piece of their artwork. And then I always tag them in it so they can continue to use that on a story or in some other way. But for me, I think probably right now, social media is the biggest avenue for me to be supportive. Your social media is lacking.
Thank you for pointing that out, Shiree.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
I was just going to say that social media has not been one of the things that I've really embraced strongly. I recognize the need for it, and I recognize that that's the key to really unlocking new levels for marketing and promoting my business. And ironically, that's a service that my business provides for our clients. Up until recently, we haven't had a lot of time to do that for ourselves. So that's a big goal coming up for us in the coming months, to up our social media. And I would also add, I'm putting it out there on the line right now, that we're about to explode with our social media content. We're about to really bust out and start making that a very vital part of our marketing process. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
You're going to be impressed, Shiree.
I think I will be, and I will support you, and I will
Yes.
add it to my stories, and you name it. So, well,
Yes,
that's exciting.
and
I'm glad to hear that.
no, it's going to be, I'm excited too. I'm very excited, and we're going to be sharing a lot more about what we do as artists, and we're going to be supporting other artists as well with our social media posts. But I think that there's also another very important aspect to getting support and giving support, and that's on the very personal level, right? I think that this right here, just sitting next to each other and having a conversation for the benefit of other people, is something that's important. But going even to a finer point, I think it's very valuable to give support to people on a very personal level. So there's several artists here in Naples that have approached me that are looking to get some help to up their game, and there's nothing I love more than interacting with other artists on a one-to-one level. It is very valuable for me to have interactions with people to help guide them when there's stuff that I have to share. I really think it's important for me, and I feel like it's my responsibility as well to share that. I've never been somebody to keep things close to the vest. In fact, I'll share a quick story. There was a time in my career when I was a commercial editor. I was working for a very large post-production film house, and advertising agencies in New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. were our clients. So, I mean, like very high prestige clientele and very high ticket. I mean, they were paying a lot of money to work with our post house to get their commercials edited and visual effects added and sound mixing sweetened and et cetera, so forth, and finally delivered and broadcast. But there was one time where one of my clients had asked me, how do you do this particular thing? And this was back in the day when video editing could only be achieved on giant refrigerator sized computers with,
Oh, wow.
right? Like
Hmm.
Silicon Valley. People out there probably don't remember what I'm talking about.
I remember Wang,
Yeah, yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah, Silicon Valley machines were like the only way that you could achieve like doing visual effects on a computer.
Hmm.
$300,000 machines. So one of my colleagues was upset with me because I told them how I did it. They asked me how I was able to motion track a graphic on top of something to make it appear as though there was an extension to a building. It's called set extension. On location, when the thing is filmed, they might not have the budget to build out an entire building facade,
Okay, I see what
but
you're
they
saying.
have enough to build the building tall enough so the actors' heads are not right popping up over the end of the set.
Right.
So then the idea was in post production, they would motion track the rest of the building in to make it look like it was a whole intact building.
Sure.
And so the
Okay.
client asked me, how was that technically achieved? How did I do that? So I told them. I said, I use this tool, I use that tool, I pick a specific point on the video frame, and then I track it, and then the computer does this, that, and the other thing, and blah, 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 blah. And so one of my colleagues was very upset with me. He's like, why did you tell him how we do that? That's the secret sauce. That's the stuff that now he's going to be able to do it. Now, like, you've eliminated the mystique, the mystery. He literally told me that what we do is voodoo to him. And I said, that's one way to look at it. But he asked me a very specific question,
Yeah.
and I answered it as honestly as I could, knowing that he doesn't have access to a $300,000 computer. He's not going to be able to do this, even if he wanted to.
Hmm.
But just the fact that I shared with him this really cool technology and how it was done and everything, he appreciates that I shared it with him.
Wanted to understand the workings behind it, even if he couldn't do it himself.
Yeah. And the irony is, like, nowadays he would be able to do that because, you know, like, we all are using like our Apple M3 processor machines that are capable of doing like 100,000 times more than that computer could do.
Mhm.
But so, like, the irony is that nowadays he would be able to replicate that himself if he wanted to, but he never would have wanted to, because what he's really there for is so that he doesn't have to do it. The reason he hired somebody else to do it was so that he wouldn't have to. Not that he couldn't do it himself, but because he didn't want to do it. So all that being said, he was an artist in his own way. This was an art
Right.
director for an agency. And so he had his own little realm of art that he had to deal with. He was responsible for the overall artistic look of his commercial.
Mm.
And I was responsible for translating his vision into, you know, through the tool set and creating what he envisioned, right? So, I mean, like, I wanted to support him because the more he could understand the process, the better he was going to be able to do his job as art director
Right.
and for projects to come. And because now he could better translate and articulate that to the cinematographer on set to make sure that what they filmed the next time would be easily tracked. It empowered him to be able to make more informed artistic decisions for his projects in the future. And if I were to keep that close to the vest and not share it, then that's not helpful really at all. And then I communicated that to the other editor who was upset with me. And I said, if you think of it that way and step aside and say, you're not trying to preserve your job, but you're really trying to enlarge the field of art. You're really trying to expand what's possible for everybody involved, then that becomes way more valuable than just the single tool. And like the knowledge that we have as artists, the techniques and stuff, you can never keep it secret.
No.
ultimately, if you don't tell them how you did something, they'll find out somewhere else. And especially
Right.
today, right?
Yeah. No.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in today's world. So when you support somebody on a very personal level, it not only helps them now, but it creates a stronger connection and it enriches the entire world of art.
I think it helps so much with developing relationships and wanting to help each other. And I even think with you and I with this podcast, I feel like it does have benefit to other artists. At least we make other people laugh sometimes. But yeah, it's just something that's enjoyable to do and does provide benefit for other artists and to be open and willing to share and talk. And when you're generous with your
Mm,
information and willing to share with others, that gives you such a feeling of happiness too. That's what you gain from that. Also, that you've developed maybe a new friendship, a new connection. And
yes.
I love one of the things about social media too. I had said in a previous podcast about meeting to vary designs. So we'd known each other on social media forever, and we finally just first met in person. And then I connected her with Katie Gianni, who is the other artist up in Jensen Beach that we did a podcast with. And she and I had that conversation too about connecting with other artists. Like she felt like there was something missing, and we do need to support each other. And like in the faux aspect of what I do, when I very first started taking classes, it was, I think I actually had to sign a waiver too that you're not supposed to disclose the techniques that you've learned because we're trying to
Mm,
protect our own industry. But so much of that has changed. And I do want to share it because I see so much value in this specific type of art. And I think that people can have a very nice career in so many different avenues of it if they're creative people and they want to express themselves in that way, that they can have a full-time business doing artwork. And so I want to help other people to realize that you don't have to be the starving artist. So what information do I have about my own experience that can help you? And then for the younger generation that want to go down this path, there are many things I've just had to learn the hard way. That if you listen to my experience, that you can probably shave years off of
yes.
being more successful much quicker than I was. And so it's important to center ourselves around other people that have those same kind of goals in mind and that want to help other people.
Oh, absolutely, Shiree. I think you and I both have a very strong spiritual basis in the way that we approach the world and our art. And I think that's one thing that we both can agree on is that when you are sharing your knowledge, then that cosmically opens you up to receive things from other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important to always remember that you could have benefited in some way from other people's support. And for me personally, that helps drive me to help other people,
Mm-hmm.
to help them create those shortcuts that were not developed for me necessarily, but I would have been very welcome to have received them if they were available,
Right.
right? So, like from that standpoint, it's very satisfying for me, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to share, to be able to parlay my experience and maybe some of the hardships or difficulties that I've had, and parlay that into things that could be useful for someone else. And I know that will just leave me open to receive gifts, maybe not in a direct reciprocal way with the people I share things with, but maybe from somewhere else.
Mm.
But one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying earlier is that you can make a full time business out of art. You can eliminate the notion of the starving artist in your life
Mm-hmm.
when you have the right attitude and when you have that giving spirit. But it is very important, right, to make sure that you surround yourself with people who are truly giving in
Mm-hmm.
their spirit. And it's also important to surround yourself with people that have the correct type of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, do you think there's a good way to seek out, say, a mentor, or is there a good way to seek out another peer in your group that can provide support for what you're doing?
Yes, it's very, for me, individualized depending on the certain need. at the time. One aspect is the business side where I have a contract. So I have very good friends of mine. He's a very smart businessman. He helped me rewrite my whole contract. And we're looking at doing a different type of contract with videos too. And so he's also willing to help me with that. And that's just his own time, but I appreciate his advice when it comes to dealing with people, when it comes to contracts. So that's one aspect. The other, on searching out for other artists, I can tell from the way a person posts and the things they post about, even the type of music that they choose to use for the posts,
Yeah.
tells me a lot about that person and their wording of something. And so it draws me to an artist in that way and to communicate back and forth, bounce things off of them. So I think my relationships like that are often specific, but then they often turn into friendships too. And that's very nice as well. But I would say a lot of the people that I'm close to on a business level, we're very much like minded
Yeah.
and have a lot of very similar goals and the way we feel about the environment. A lot of different aspects of our life are very similar.
Oh, right. It's important to find, yeah, people that are compatible in receiving the gifts that you have and who are compatible in the types of gifts that you are looking to receive, with knowledge and friendship and like sometimes sometimes a great relationship could be like you come across somebody who has more business knowledge than you, and you've got more technical knowledge than them, and that's maybe a good exchange of information. But yeah, like definitely don't discount the emotional compatibility as well. That's super important. All right. Thank you, Shiree. I think we got that one covered.
I think we do.
Yeah, I think that's really good stuff. Let's share with everybody how they can get in touch with us.
Okay. My website is ShireeNichole.com. ShireeNichole.com. And where can they find you, Scott?
They can visit reinventionstudiolab.com. That's a fantastic way to see what we're up to and to get in touch with us and see what coaching offerings there are currently. That's reinventionstudiolab.com. I'm Scott Markowitz, and
Shiree Nichole. Thanks for joining us.
keep on creating and rock on.
I like that.